If you Google slow living, you'll find a zillion articles and a zillion YouTube videos. And yes, this is one of them. I'm really bad at slow living. I'm bad at hobbies and making time for them.
Well, hobby stuff.
I'm bad at making time for myself, to a point where I have to put taking a shower in my calendar, so I don't forget. If you're like me, maybe not to such an extent.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Hopefully this video can be useful for you. I've looked at the French lifestyle. I've been looking at it for the past 6 years. I've compiled the strategies that I think we can learn from the French, no matter where we are, no matter what we do, no matter our lifestyle. Number 1, the French are very protective of their private space and their private time.
Not now, private time.
They even have legislation which is called right to disconnect. Just think about it, right to disconnect. We all have it. It means that you have the right to not be online in the evening, over the weekend, whenever you are off work. It means that chatting about work-related tasks on Messenger or on WhatsApp or on Skype or on Instagram even is still work. Ideally, we would build those hours. I'll tell you more. We all have the right to disconnect over our lunch breaks, and we all have the right to a hot lunch and not a sandwich behind the computer. The French are known for their lunch breaks. All businesses, at least outside of big cities, are closed between 12 and 2, unless these are restaurants, of course. How did I implement that in my life? I actually put lunch breaks in my calendar. I did that over a year ago, and it's worked tremendously well. After a while, you stop feeling awkward about blocking your time for lunch in the calendar. What happens is just people don't schedule calls for that time.
I'll stop calling.
So you actually have that time to yourself. That slot is precious, and I've come to really love it and looking forward to it, because even if I have some work to do, I know that I won't have any calls at that time. I know that I have that time to myself. It's sacred. That's what the French have taught me. I have a funny story on this subject. So I have a very good friend. She comes from the States, and she worked in Europe for a couple of years, for quite a few years actually. And even after working in Europe for a very long time, surrounded by French people, she could not understand how come they get to take a 2-hour lunch break and have, quote unquote, a hot meal. When I heard that, I was like, really? Is your problem with them having a hot meal for lunch? She said, yeah, I have lunch in front of my computer. It's all right to have a sandwich. They do that 2-hour lunch break and then they go on to have a coffee and it never ends. And then they leave at 4 p.m. And then the next day they're out smoking every half hour. When are they going to do the work that I need them to do? And I understand her agony. I do. But I had to say, stop. You are judging people for having a hot meal. Dear friend, it's really good for your digestion to have a hot meal. Please stop eating sandwiches in front of your computer. Another thing that the French are known for is greeting strangers in the street. If you have eye contact with a person in the street, in France, you smile back. And you even say, bonjour. It's funny because it depends on how big the city is, how wide the street is, how many people there are in the street. The best example is a hiking trail. On a hiking trail, which is usually very narrow and there are few people always greet you. In France, it's enough to say bonjour and smile. In other countries, people feel awkward, don't know what to say. I'm really grateful for that word. It's really useful. But I think it's enough to just smile.
Smiles, everybody, smiles.
Even if you don't know which word to say. Why is that important, and why does that help with living slowly? I believe that these tiny practices of acknowledgement and gratitude make you focus on the moment. They pull you out of your thoughts, of your plans. They just force you to be in the moment, to acknowledge the person in front of you, to maybe even remember what they look like, to notice the weather. I think it's a wonderful way to disconnect for at least a couple of seconds. So next time you have eye contact with another person, don't be shy, don't turn away, don't try to avoid it and hide it, just smile back. Where I come from, people are really not used to doing that. And I realized after living abroad and coming back that I still do that. And maybe at first it feels kind of funny and weird.
Smile. No.
But after a while, I've noticed that people come to appreciate it. And I think it improves the vibe, it improves your mood. So go ahead and do it. Don't be shy.
Build suspense. Don't be shy.
I have to say I'm a bit pissed when I prepare myself on a hiking trail, for example, to say bonjour or whatever, bonsoir, but it's rare, right? You usually hike during the day. And they don't respond. Sometimes I make an effort to say it more loudly. I try to remember that they don't necessarily have to be French, right? Maybe they're foreigners just like me. Human contact in general is very good for slowing down. Oh, that's dust because I'm at a construction site. So connecting with other people. What can we learn from the French? First of all, they smile to strangers, that we understood. Second of all, the French really like parties. And when I say parties, I don't necessarily mean dancing to techno music, being drunk. Even though for some inexplicable reason, the French really love that techno music.
Cafe disco, more like crappy disco.
What I mean is they really love their apéro. Apéro is the drink and snacks before dinner. Somehow I think it replaces dinner, but we never stay long enough to understand whether other people go home for dinner or not. We always leave after an hour and a half approximately because we enjoy our hot dinner.
Party pooper.
People tend to organize these buffets quite regularly, at least once a year, for some sort of celebration. Sometimes before Christmas, sometimes during the summer. There is even such a thing as Fête des voisins, where people are encouraged to organize meals together, and this way people meet each other. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that it's always been like that in France, that if you're not in France, it wouldn't work for you. Well, guess what? It's not true, because this tradition, the Fête des voisins, appeared in Paris in 1999. And ever since, it's become so popular that it's organized in all of the small towns and villages of France. And if it's a big city, then it's organized on a block-by-block basis. It's a great way to meet new people, people who live next door to you. And it's accessible to everyone. Wherever you live, you can volunteer and be the party organizer. People will be grateful to you. Being aware of where you are, what you're doing, why you're doing that, what joy, what benefits it brings you. To me, that's slow living. And of course, for the French, food is a major part of it. They love the act of eating as much as they love the act of cooking. If you go to a French supermarket, of course you'll see ready-cooked meals, but it'll be a small portion. Most of the things on the shelves will be preserves or fresh vegetables, but it'll be vegetables or meat or cheese. It won't be ready-made meals that you just shove in the microwave and in 30 seconds they're ready.
Forget the sandwich.
And this love for food translates into supporting local farmers. A lot of people do their shopping at the market, at the farmer's market, not at the supermarket. I almost forgot a major part of living slowly when it comes to cooking. It's cooking and eating seasonal. And the French love that. They eat seasonal vegetables and fruit and even meat when it's the hunting season. Why is that slow living? I think there are two reasons. The first reason is that it forces you to look at the calendar and understand what time of year it is and to be appreciative of that time. Even if it's some wet and nasty November, there's still something to look forward to and to admire about that month. The second thing is that it reinforces our long-lost connection with earth, with the soil, with agriculture. We're all in here now, behind the screen, many of us, and we don't even know when certain things grow. We're used to seeing tomatoes, cucumbers, avocados, and mangoes on our shelves in the supermarket all year round without paying attention to where they're produced, what quality they are, and whether it's sensible to be eating those vegetables and those fruits in that season. Traditionally, they would be preserved for winter, and then when it's the season again, you would eat them fresh. Now we can freeze produce, but still, it hasn't changed the fact that eating something that isn't produced locally in this season isn't particularly healthy. Producers harvest bananas, mangoes, all of those fruit. They harvest them early, so they're still green. They haven't ripened. They haven't been filled with all of the amazing vitamins that they could have been filled with. So eating seasonal is a major part of living slowly, and it's something the French can totally teach us. It's sometimes tricky to find the calendar of local produce that is seasonal for your region, but just try and make an effort. Maybe try and ask your parents or grandparents or neighbors who grow food what's in season when, and that will give you an idea of the seasonal food. It also expands your cooking vocabulary. For example, I never used to eat fennel, but the French eat a lot of fennel when it's in season. We decided to explore that vegetable, and now we love it. We know a few dishes that we can make with it, and I'm actually looking forward to fennel at the market. Now would be a great moment for me to say that I know when fennel is produced, but I can't remember. While we're on the subject of growing food, I might as well mention that the French are supposed to be the founders of the traditional kitchen gardens where you grow fruit, vegetables, and herbs. One of the biggest reasons why I love growing things, even though I'm not particularly active in that field, because again, I'm bad at slow living, but I know that I love growing. Growing things teaches me not to give up. It teaches me to appreciate plants, to remember that they are living things, that they communicate with each other, that they respond to weather and climate. Growing food teaches you not to look for shortcuts. It teaches you to appreciate the tiny little changes, the small steps that take you from point A to point B, from a tiny seed to a full vegetable or fruit. I think growing food teaches you to be kinder to yourself, because it shows you how slow progress is. But if you put enough effort and attention and love, it does happen. In order to improve, you have to continue going and you don't give up. You put fertilizer in, you water some more, you look for advice to improve the growing, but you continue trusting that it will happen. You continue appreciating the changes that you witness, even if they're tiny, incremental. And that's what I think slow living is about. It's about giving up on shortcuts. It's about being there to witness the tiny things that make up the colorful fabric of our lives, to acknowledge the people that come our way and smile at them, even if they're strangers, to acknowledge our neighbors and organize a party for them. So slow living is a life-changing practice. I don't think you can be a successful slow liver and be present on social media, have a career, and be famous for something. I honestly don't think that, because all of these things, they go hand in hand with stress, with shortcuts, but I'm convinced that we can learn some practical strategies and implement them on a daily basis. If you have something to add, make sure you write it in the comments below, like this video, share it with your friends and family, and please subscribe. I'll be happy to see you in my next video.